Hello everybody, this is Bitcoin Macro, and on this video guys I'm going to talk about the recent listings on Coinbase Pro. These include Gitcoin, Enzyme and AMP. So I'm going to talk about these three coins. I'm going to make some other videos today as well, maybe one for Solana and Dogecoin, because I haven't spoken about these listings, and at least Solana hasn't been really listed yet on Coinbase Pro because they have had some issues with the listing. And to be honest, these coins haven't been listed yet, but they've been announced, so people can actually deposit these tokens on Coinbase Pro, but they cannot really start trading them right now. So this video is going to be so that you can prepare for the listings if you are trading on Coinbase Pro. To be honest, I'm not a massive fan of Coinbase. I'm not a big fan anyways, but if you choose to trade on there, these three tokens are going to be on there pretty soon. So the first one is Gitcoin, which is actually a relatively small coin, which is about 140 million of market cap. It's a very new coin and pretty interesting because I have heard several people talk about it. I didn't really know what it was, and I would definitely urge everyone to just have a look at it now. To me, the token for this project doesn't really seem like it has much of a use case, but the project itself as a website and everything, like what it allows you to do and the way people can create all those funds, and they can build these communities and fund them like of Web3 and so on. It's very interesting. Now the next one is Enzyme, which is, like I said, one of the older projects out there. It's also relatively small and has had a very interesting chart. I spoke about this one a few weeks ago. I mentioned it on a video because the chart, at least the Bitcoin chart of MLN, looked very bullish. It was called Melon Protocol. It has been rebranded to Enzyme Finance now that they've had a big upgrade. They went from 1.0 to 2.0, and like I said before, it has been under development for many years. So it's definitely a project that's definitely worth looking at, even if you don't invest in it, because it allows you to just do a lot of on-chain asset management. So essentially you can build your own funds. At least that was what the first one was supposed to do. But after the upgrade, I think they've allowed a lot more things, and it's a lot more flexible so that people can build tons of things on top of this protocol. Now the final one, guys, is going to be AMP. Again, I've spoken so much about this one that I don't really want to talk about it more, so I would urge everyone to just go back and have a look at the previous videos just to save some time on this one, but also because I don't really want to repeat the same stuff for people that have watched the previous videos in the past. It's much larger than the rest, so just know that this one might be a little bit less volatile because it's a larger project. It's a better known project. It has more listings than the rest of those coins that I mentioned, and that means that potentially has less potential returns too. However, the chart is looking very strong, especially versus Bitcoin, and I'm going to explain why. So let's get straight into the chart. First of all, this one is looking pretty strong, guys, because when I see AMP USD, at least since the listing on Gemini, we can see that it tried to push higher once, then it did have a little consolidation right here after a nice drop, then tried to push higher, and of course it kind of fell on its head because everything else was collapsing. But before that, it was looking pretty bullish, and it has actually recovered most of its losses compared to other coins, which are down much more. Being down 30% from its all-time highs, it's pretty much nothing when other coins are still down about 50, 60, 70% from their all-time highs. If I look at the AMP BTC chart on Bittrex, the main thing that I would want you guys to know is that although we cannot see the chart because in the past AMP was called FXC, was flexa coin, it was rebranded too, there was a resistance that was going back to 2019, and I showed that on the previous video, that was going back to early 2019 because it had one pump, then it had the second pump during the DeFi summer. It was late DeFi summer, actually. It was in September of 2020 because it started pumping pretty late, then dumped again, then we hit that same resistance several times, and now you can see here that the price actually broke that, and it was consolidating very nicely right above the previous resistance. It tried to break before to have a breakout, but because of the large market correction, everything fell, so did AMP. Okay, now the key observation that I would be making here, and for some of the other coins is that potentially some insiders already knew about this. And we have seen such action on Coinbase before, and even sometimes on Binance, where you see a coin do pretty well and have some interesting patterns where it goes up quite a bit right before the listing, and then once the listing happens, then it pumps a little bit more and then it dumps. I'm not saying this one will dump because the chart is looking fairly strong, but potentially some people knew that it was coming and they started buying some AMP before the listing. So the next one, I'm just going to go through MLN because it's just going to be a lot easier for me to explain the chart. And as you can see here, guys, it was consolidating for quite some time. I don't mean that potentially these people already knew. However, the thing is that these big lines here, these big bumps, they came right before the listing. They didn't come after the announcement. They came before the announcement. And when the announcement came, this is what happened. They started dumping. Of course, it doesn't mean that the coin is bad or anything like it, guys. However, you have to be aware that sometimes when you see something having gone up already so much, it's better to wait for a pullback. Now, maybe it comes all the way down to this area, which would be perfect to buy this. Or if it doesn't, in my opinion, even buying a little higher after the correction. And when the trading starts on Coinbase, it would be nice to at least buy for a bounce. I do believe that this is not going to go straight down or anything like it. Because if you have a look at the whole chart, you can see that if I try to just zoom in a little bit, it's just really weird because it has had this insane capitulation. So it's still down from its all-time highs from about June of 2017. It's down 93%. So versus Bitcoin is still pretty cheap. And it has formed this massive base for quite some time. So even here, in just a few months, it had collapsed another 95%. And it was going sideways for about a year. Okay, guys? And then after this formation, having that very nice pump, it got listed on Huobi back then. It was doing pretty well during the DeFi summer. It doesn't really have that many listings, but it got a few listings over the summer. Also, the liquidity from Uniswap did help it quite a bit, the upgrade as well. And then once it came back to this support level right here, it did hold and then it started slowly going higher and higher. It wasn't one of the best performers this alt season, but so far it has been one of those that has actually held much better than the rest, because although the rest have fallen, this one has gone up, at least versus Bitcoin. Then let's have a look at the USD price chart to just have a bit of a sense of where we are right now. And as you can see, it's not at all-time highs, it's still below its all-time highs, but it doesn't really have too much resistance from this point onwards. Now, if Bitcoin corrects and then it also corrects versus Bitcoin because let's say the market drops again, then it could go all the way down to $88, which is actually pretty strong support by what it looks right here, because it has been resistance for quite some time. Now you can also see that it was resistance a little bit here. That was where the big pump started. So if it pulls back all the way down to $85, it would be a pretty nice buy. I can't say that for AMP because AMP looked a bit stronger. There's a kind of key difference here because this one is not at all-time highs. This one also pumped a lot more than AMP. The chart is looking quite different as well. But both of them were two coins that, in my opinion, were two coins that were going to outperform Bitcoin, like I had mentioned before, and they actually did so. Of course, I couldn't have predicted like such a massive crash. I was expecting 38K rather than such a big collapse, but such is life. Now, let's look at Gitcoin that I promised you guys. This one, it started trading very recently, started trading right after the crash, and it's been one of those coins that have done pretty well because it has gone from about $3 all the way up to $11. And it could keep going much higher. It's not listed on many big exchanges, which is pretty good because now that Coinbase is going to list this one, and it's only trading, let's say, on Uniswap and some other exchanges, some small ones that usually have gems like MXC and Gate. Now that's going to be listed on Coinbase, maybe Binance follows, maybe Huobi follows, maybe even more exchanges follow, because they usually, at least these exchanges that I mentioned before, MXC and Gate, usually are the leaders of listings. But once Coinbase lists a project that is not listed on many exchanges, many more might follow, even Bittrex, Kraken, or whatever other exchange. And I'm going to talk about some of these things on the next video that I'm going to make about Solana and Dogecoin. So if we look at this on CoinTrader Pro, you can see they had a very nice spike immediately after the listing. That was right after the big collapse, so the market was already coming out of the pretty dark place. So that was kind of a big kind of relief, let's say, for some of those projects. Those projects that actually launched right after the crash did pretty well, but those that launched before the crash, they did pretty badly, and it's unfortunate for some of those. But Gitcoin has some pretty good stuff, because even Vitalik Buterin has been supporting it. So it's definitely worth having a look. Now, here you can see that there is some support, but if that level starts breaking at about 2,600 Satoshis, then we could easily see it come back all the way down to 1,700 Satoshis. So if it comes down to here, I would definitely want to buy some, even if it's just for a little bounce, because again, like we know recently, many times after a Coinbase listing, especially when the alt season is over, most of the projects start to dump, and then at some point they have a very quick bump. Okay, it's something that you need to be aware of, that listings during a bear market, they're not as positive, okay, because they usually have a pretty important effect. They have a price appreciation, they cause the price to appreciate, and then the price dumps quite hard. It's something that you just need to be aware of this, because I do see many people expecting after a listing the price to continue, or they buy into the listing, where the right thing to do is you either have bought before the listing, anticipating that this project would be listed, like I had mentioned about AMP. Now with Melon, I wasn't really expecting it to be listed on Coinbase, but I had a pretty strong chart. So it's different. So when you have it before the listing, then you just hold it, maybe to just have an extra appreciation, and then sell it. Maybe you have already set your target, so you didn't really have to do anything. But if you hold it and you see the listing, you definitely want to sell at least some, because holding it through that period might be quite a bit of a torture, because the price would most likely dump afterwards. And you can clearly see it here with MLN, because the price was doing very well, and you might have been thinking, oh, it's going to do even better, and then you just see it get slammed very badly, because again, you have to be aware that some people have more information than you. Again, it doesn't mean that this project isn't going to go up. In my opinion, it will go up, especially if it comes back down to this area, because to me, it looks very similar to the area that I tested over here. I'm a big fan of buying the retest of broken resistance, like resistance that turns back into support. So when I see that kind of thing, of having a nice massive base, and then the price pulls back into that zone, it's good for buying. Now, I'm not really a massive fan of these charts. Like, that's why I wasn't really buying MLN very early on, because after I see such a chart, like something have such a bubble, especially versus Bitcoin, I'm not really interested straight away. If it shows me some stronger stuff, then I will be interested, like this accumulation right here. Because another thing that you might be interested in and you should be aware of is, did that coin fully recover very quickly versus Bitcoin and start testing the same resistance it was testing before the crash, after the crash? So this is exactly what happened with MLN, with Enzyme. So it was testing this resistance, it was kind of consolidating, it was going sideways. Then after the big crash, it fell quite a bit, but then recovered very quickly. And then once it broke out, it never really looked back, and it pretty much doubled in price. So that's it from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Please click the bell icon. I'm going to be making more videos, bear market or not, bull market, doesn't matter. I've got some pretty hot stuff for you guys, because I'm going to start doing more educational content, more stuff about, coins that might be interesting, some even about stocks or other stuff, because I think there is a pretty nice overlap, and I do believe that people should be well-rounded when it comes to trading and investing. It doesn't mean that you should go and invest in stocks, but maybe sometimes you do want to play with something. Maybe you want to be aware of certain things that are going on in the global economy, because like my name says, I'm Bitcoin Macro. I really like the macro stuff. So I would definitely like to help you guys with some of that stuff as well. And definitely to just have some extra educational content so that you can understand more of the things that I will be mentioning in the future. Because I don't want to make it sound very weird and like gibberish, so that people have a better understanding of what I'm saying. So once again, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Please remember to also follow me on the socials like Twitter, Telegram, and TradingView, where I share some of my ideas over there as well. I do give a lot of quick updates. I have been sharing a lot of threads, a lot of stuff about the action that has been going on with Bitcoin. And that's it for me, and I'll see you on the next one.